If you want to play with it, do. If you don't,
Are these all yours?
they're all set to be destroyed and have no claim on them. So technically,
Where'd you get
Do
them?
they have to be destroyed?
nope. These ones, the servers, all the hard drives were destroyed, but the terminals, nope. They're
And so there's this software.
yeah. I left it. I left the software.
All right,
So
you're good to go.
Leave them here.
Yeah, we can. You want to play with it, dude? No. Okay, so I do my presentations. You can turn off that beep. It's in there. My presentation, my marketing or tagline is "Think like a hacker." I know that a lot of people, especially in this community, the word hacker, but I don't really care. Hollywood defines a hacker as what everybody knows what a hacker is, so I just use it. The moment I can walk up to somebody and say they're a hacker, they say, "Oh, they make breadboards in their basement," then I'll start calling it something else. So if you get offended by it, I apologize. You can leave now because I'll do it throughout. I do own my own company on the side. A little background about me. I've been in point of sale since 2001. I was a tier 1 through 4 support for 300 plus locations on Linux backend for movie theaters. I've architected, designed, installed, trained, anything you want, anything from single one-off shops to our latest replacement, which knocked a lot of these terminals out, was a $1.6 million overhaul. Disclaimer, just, don't do this on somebody that you don't approve to do it on, which is why you have terminals. You have permission to attack these terminals, see what APIs they have, look at whatever it is. The most current is the one you got back there. Those terminals are still live and in use at many gas stations, restaurants, a lot of retail. The one back there with Lance is a legacy. You probably won't see a lot of those anymore. I think that memory caps out like 256 or something. They're pretty old. Yeah, just be smart. Literally, this is not to teach you how to be a hacker. I clearly am on the defense side, but I do like to learn interesting things about what hackers do and don't do, and how you can leverage that, right? The goal is to not end up in breach plaza, right? So these are all companies that have been breached recently. Many of them point of sale, many of them made the news. I no longer have to do scare hacking in point of sale. Target and Home Depot have solved that, so my scare slides are all gone. They're now just in breach plaza. But yes, what's that mindset? What are they looking for? What are the avenues? How do you leverage that to your advantage? How do you try all things, right? So point of sale. Point of sale is point of purchase, point of inputs. There's lots of funky names for them, but it's all just essentially host connecting to a server in some manner. There's cloud servers, there's local servers, there's failover servers, and then there's multiple servers in those environments. Servers that'll link to external credit card loyalty. There's a lot of things that are included in the point of sale sphere, digital menu boards that tie into them, all sorts of stuff. So I find this is pretty fascinating that pretty much just 8% of transaction cash, right? Depending on your market, the more Hispanic you get markets, the cash goes up, and then the more income is in there, the less cash. So if you go to some of these resort areas, you're down to literally 8%. That's it. But most banking transfers, everything is just electronic now. We all know that, right? Several saying obfuscation. Anyway, point of sale has pretty much been this for the last, since it came about, right? Since the 80s, is that what it is? It's all proprietary here, right? You don't have to scare that anymore, right? Home Depot and Target proved otherwise. It's not all secure. It's not. You can't just have magic devices that do things that nobody knows about, and it's all secure and protected. So breach plaza actually filled up. They all moved into breach mall already, and any business can be there. Most businesses are. 1 to 5 is already there in some extent, from some minor to something major. And the average breach actually lasts for quite a long time. So a lot of the businesses who are not there are probably there in one form or another. Just depends on what they're giving up. So issues with point of sale. This is one of the big ones, right? Companies get breached all the time with this. And literally some of the passwords is like Aloha Stations is Aloha Aloha. Username is Aloha, password is Aloha. Manager, Manager is another classic. These are all legitimate passwords that are out there. A lot of these are NCR or IBM. NCR is the big player in point of sale. The Walmart, the Target. And, they make Radiant systems that are right here too. Site IDs end up being passwords a lot, which are printed right on the receipt. So when you get your receipt, it'll show like that restaurant site ID. That's a lot of time the password. And rolling passwords with software. So they'll secure the back office with like a rolling password system, but it has nothing to do with Windows. So it's just like their software, which should contain their credit cards nice and isolated, but Windows is still wide open as admin, right? So there's some things you can do with that. So these terminals here, a lot of these, this came out of production. I think, what was it, ones?
Yep, 4 ones.
4 ones. I didn't even know that. But a lot of these, they're just patterns. A lot of employees pick them, or even managers or ones. But a lot of times they're squares, they're diagonals. Terminal logins are a lot of times like 753, 357. That'll go right in. People just come up with a unique pattern, right? So as you see those terminals, yeah, Danny was able to get in one, so win some hacker award on that, I'm sure. All right, so the bulk of what we're going to discuss is really credit cards, because that's what it boils down to. Otherwise, we're just talking hacking hosts, which anybody has a ton of people way more qualified to talk about hacking hosts. But credit cards, right? This is what hackers go after. This is the reason you hack point of sale, is for credit cards. So credit cards, there's some blank ones here. They have 3 tracks on them. Track 1, 2, and 3, and they're just different depths. And the reader, I'm gonna walk down here, but see me on stream, they can't. So there's some readers here, and there's some ones that are taken out, and you'll see the magnetic strips actually on them. And at the different depths, they'll pick up different tracks. Most only have 2. Most data only resides in track 1 and track 2. Track 3 is rarely used, especially in point of sale, unless it's for some other things we're going to talk about. There is one, I think you got one back there that has all 3 track readers on it. So they just have different depths and what they're used for. And they're all broken out. It's pretty self-explanatory. We have the actual PAN, the primary account number. That's the most critical part, right? You only need this to process most transactions. We have name on the card, PANs on both on the card, expiration date, it's on the card, bunch of zeros. There's a security code as well. We'll talk about that briefly. And there's a check digit and the CVV as well. And the CVV is on the back, right? And the
That's track 1,
right? Track 1 and 2.
And 2.
Yeah, the only thing the difference is track 2 is like the abbreviated version of track 1. If track 1 fails, it tries track 2. Or some just default and do track 2 alone. Pretty much the same information, but no name, right? So it's showing this is track. I think I have another slide of this. Here we go. So the difference is this is the string for track 1, and track 2 just pretty much takes the name out, but they're all in a very standard format. They all start with % sign, all have B, all have this in between the name, this after the name, and they all end up with a question mark, like 1. And everybody just parses that and processes it. Some interesting notes. The only thing that's actually checked is your CVV for authorization. That's it. The other ones are called post-auth or any other form of that, which means they can then balance. If you, at a certain site, and I've done this where I put in a fake expiration date in the future, and it will still clear. But there's some that will do that post-auth that it'll check the balance and then will, like a gas station would with the zip code, right? It's already cleared, but they're going to balance that against what zip code you put in, and if it doesn't match, they're just going to turn around and void that transaction. So your expiration date really doesn't matter as long as it's in the future, but if they have a point of sale written to do a post check, then it will turn around and void it out, much like a gas station. Track 3 is pretty much useless in the point of sale world. It's not used. However, some of these new devices, end-to-end encryption, which we'll briefly talk about at the end, they embed their private keys and information on track 3. Some other things are used for track 3. It was historically built for like thrift stores. Best research I can find. It's not used for that, but they do use it for some activation cards because there's longer. You can do up to like what did we decide? 96 characters or something.
104.
104 characters. And we tried putting it all. So your PAN is 16 digits, right? Everybody knows that. You put in your credit card, 16-digit number, but you have a big. That's 6 characters. That's your bank information. That's standard, right? That's MX, Visa, MasterCard, Discover. I left out all the JBC and Travelers that nobody uses. I mean, I'm sure somebody does, but for this argument, don't care. So I just put in the big 4, MX, Visa. They all start with these numbers. They're easy to find. They're easy to see what they are. There's really no secret to the bin up front. And nobody really encrypts the last 4 anymore. That's kind of like your tokenization to look back. So you have your first 6 that don't really matter, and the last 4 are usually open, and your last 1 is your check digit, which can be reproduced using with the mod 10 calculation, which is math over my head, but you can, there are programs that will do that. We'll say if this check digit equals this PAN because of this, which means you can turn around and use it. So really, we're down to like 9 digits. Are secure very well. Which 9-digit only numbers, right? Numerical only. There's no alphabet, no hexadecimal or anything like that.
Yeah, well, they just go ahead and mask the pen. They'll have the bin and then the last 4 and then the mask the 9.
Right. Yep. They call it. There's a thing for that 6 and 4. They should the first are open and then they hide the rest in the middle. Okay, so there's some service codes in there. I was able to successfully take my credit card and run it through a reader. This is not just a reader. You have a bunch of readers out here, but this is also a writer as well. So I have an NFC chip in here, and the NFC gives it a certain code. It gives it a 2 or a 6 in that 3-digit code. And that says it has a chip, which means that the point-of-sale terminal is enabled for pin and chip, then it will swipe. So if you walk up to point-of-sale and you swipe this, and the terminal is a pin and chip device, it'll say, nope, you need to dip it, right? So you have to dip it in there. However, well, we can discuss EMV and security of that, but I just took my card. Because we have fallovers with magnetic stripes, it will never be as successful as it should be. I was able to take my card, I just duplicated it, and I changed that check digit, this code, from a 2 to a 1, and then I can use it no matter what. Like, this is my card right here. And I did use it.
So you have used it
Yeah,
stores,
yeah.
no one cares.
I got a few weird looks, but nobody stopped it. I was already prepared to say it's new technology, just came out, but nobody actually asked.
Does it have your name on it at all? Or
No, it's literally this card. I'm showing you. They look just like this. This is it, right?
You can have one.
This is a complete white card. Nothing on it except this. But there are some other things in there that you can restrict them ATM only. Like I could come in and mod a card and say like it's able to be used. There are some checks at some banks on the back end, but surprisingly a lot of this is actually done locally on your card. So you could change that. If you were restricted to only buying like an EBT card for certain goods, you might be able to flip that to buy whatever you want. Especially that a lot of these new technologies, there are new tech coming out. You've seen the point card, where you can load all your cards onto one card and use that. Because it's really just getting into physical security. I think I have a slide for it, but it doesn't really matter. Part of the agreements is they're supposed to check physical security, right? They're supposed to look at, is it the bank? Does it have a number? Is it raised letters? Are they foil tipped? Like, there's a whole bunch more. I think I have a slide for this. I'll get to that. Yeah, here we go. So phone number, metal ticking, signature. Credit cards have UV ink in them. How many people stick a credit card under the UV light to check for the UV? Well, you can buy a laser jet and put UV ink in it too, right? So a lot of this hacking used to buy to like duplicate cards. But because this tech is coming out, like nobody carries their checks, so light's all pointless. Like you don't need to spend like $3,000 or $5,000 on metal tip embossing because they'll just take it. Let alone kiosks, right? Unmanned. What do they care? They're not checking anything. Brand colors, logo, and then all this is there is no mandatory or no consistency. It's all just everything's different, right? My latest credit card actually had no raise. It was just printed on there. I mean, there's nothing, some are on the back. Like everything is just different. So there's really no way for any cashier to be properly trained on security, which is, they don't know. As far as it clears, they're happy, right? CVV, there's no consistency on that either with the name or anything. But it is checked for approval if they have an agreement to do it. I know Amazon actually doesn't even check for CVV. I don't know how they work that deal, but they have that deal. There are you can put in, these are called like regex something, I forget the term. Anyway, what you're doing is you're trying to weed out everything that's a false positive. If you just say, give me all 16-digit numbers, you're going to end up with a ton of false positives. This is there's programs that you can go and look through databases on it, essentially, at rest, right? This would be for in transit. You can do Wireshark, or at a dump would be at rest to find out if there's actually credit card data flowing in there. If you have any questions, just ask. Like, small enough groups, perfect. So we already went over physical cards, why it matters. So where do we get in trouble with point of sale? We get in trouble a lot with offline store and forward. Anybody know what that is? So even these terminals are built with that. So if they lose network connection to their payment processor, there's options and flags that each retailer can set, such as just take it, or take it with manager credentials, or don't take it at all, or take it if it's...
They have to encrypt it, right, to store it. That's a PCI requirement.
Nope. So PCI requirement actually says, it says processed. So if it's never processed,
That's BS.
you're sitting...
No.
Check it.
I've been under audit. You cannot let it sit in clear text on the hard drive.
I would say 90% of retailers have store and forward right now.
Well, they have to. It has to be.
Now, the really big retailers, the good ones, are going to have followers, right? They're going to go to a second ISP, or they're going to use dial-up as a follower. But there's a lot that just take it. Sits there. I know of a breach for sure. It sat there for 3 weeks in store and forward on an infected machine. Same with Tor. Tor is pretty similar. This is for double charges. It reaches out. Everything times out in the middle. And they keep pretty much all the information you need to duplicate a card has to stay until that's settled. And a lot of batches do the same thing. And with PCI, you can totally keep that there until it's processed or batched. Depends on what SAC you're in, B, C, or D. SAC D is the most rigorous, 361 controls or something. But card data can exist until it's processed. And depending on which QSA you have, that might be different. Every QSA kind of interprets PCI information the way they interpret PCI information. Voids and refunds too. Settlement. EMV is supposed to be this massive solution, right? That's that dip. That's what goes in the bottom of this. It's the dipping of the card. It's that second factor of authentication. Something you have, something you, right? But if this device isn't even set up for EMV, it'll just take it at a swipe. And if your card has even a broken EMV or the trigger's been removed, it'll just take it. It takes it as a swipe. So EMV does stop some low-hanging criminals from using compromised cards at a place, but doesn't stop any card not present. It doesn't stop anything to do with online, telephone sales, anything. Because all you need to process is that PAN. And if you really have that information, it's not hard to create a card and change that service from a 2 to a 1. It's not hard to remove the EMV requirement. So EMV potentially could help a lot of fraud at brick and mortar, but until they get rid of the stripe, it won't. Just real quick on that serial headphones is just, there's no encryption. It's just about which proprietary way of pulling that out. Square has one, Amazon has one, they all have one. So they just, essentially it's just obfuscation, right? It's just in there. So some PCI compliant, so systems that can be deemed PCI compliant that are still susceptible for hacking. This is Target, Home Depot, a lot of RAM scraping. Metacortex here did a presentation on RAM scraping. And there's programs that are only to apply RAM scraping with the regex and pull out credit card data. It'll even check for duplicate one and track two at the same time. That will make sure, no, that's a duplicate. wanted that. We just want one of each, right? So page file systems, a lot of point of sales run out of RAM just because they're running all the time, never get reboot, and they just get stored in there. So instead of an actual RAM, it gets stuck into a page file. LAN sniffing.
So is it going plain text over the wire then too?
It depends how your environment's set up, but most, most are sending it to the server. The server's doing the work and then sending it out. And a lot of people like talk about point of sale. They say, well, there's no internet on the terminals, so they're good. They don't have virus. They don't need Windows updates. They don't need. There is no internet on. There's the only gateway is the server, and there's no internet access. All of them are definitely the enterprise ones are all managed somehow, right? And the way they're managed is usually through VNC, which we'll get to in a minute. They're all managed through or Windows Remote Desktop, or they've turned on internet, right? It's usually one of those three.
This one has the hard drive shared.
They almost all do. And map drives are bad in point of sale. And APIs, we'll touch on, APIs. This one I think I pulled up what API it's running right now. The server's looking for. And a lot of the APIs, especially if you have like logs, are so bad. Like logs are awesome when there's an issue, but people just tend to log in and fix the issue and leave logging on. And a lot of the logging is even to solve credit card issues. And so the logging, well, you might be fully PCI compliant out of scope, but the logs have everything. And full track information just sitting in logs. Because somebody turned up credit card logging. Turn it on. Debug, boom. There it is. Can we open this yet? It's really hot.
Depends on how loud they are.
It's too hot in here to keep the door closed. No. I did. Okay. If you want. All right. So logs are a huge vulnerability. So you've got to turn logs off, right? If you're solving an issue or your team, you've got to teach them to kill logs the moment you solve it. It's amazing how many times PAN is just sitting out in logs. And APIs, there's some APIs that are written so bad that just straight up leak out everything in there. So a lot of hacking now is coming down to they'll try to DOS that terminal or their LAN or whatever to force them all to store it forward. It's kind of a clever way to do it. If you can take down that network by plugging anything or kill something or duplicates IP addresses or whatever that is, all of a sudden these terminals will start storing and forwarding everything, right? Which is not good. Temporary storage, for some reason, a lot of credit card data ends up in there. And I can't tell you, I've had 3 different point of sale companies tell me credit card data in there, and I find credit card data. Because they just don't expect somebody to check. But you always got to check. Find those regex, find the tools, look into your in transit and at rest and what's there, right? Because all of a sudden it's like everything was good, and I think I found 360 credit cards in there. No, sorry, 36,000. Like it was a crap load of cards, and it was all in log because logging was turned on to solve a credit card issue and never turned off. And in fact, he was deploying the same all of his locations, and it was on everywhere. So he ended up removing that and scrubbing those. But stored and forwarding, brute forcing. This is our other attacks you can do. And really, I've seen some just terrible point of sale where literally the key is on the server, which is connected to the internet, and using like manager as credentials. Well, so yes, it's PCI compliant, but PCI did add some new things now about key handling. Before they weren't managing keys, they didn't worry about it, but their key handling now shouldn't be on the same computer that's on. Really should have some sort of escrow and 2 people to do it. Okay, let's talk about remote desktop. So we talked about briefly, like pretty much every terminal. I think all these ones have remote desktop. Every big player, IBM, is running some sort of VNC or shadow VNC. They take the VNC, the open source, whatever, and they'll strip out and add their own little package on it. The newer ones have that package. They have VNC. Will have no listing at all. It's just game on VNC. If you were to do some sort of analysis on these as open ports, I would suspect they all have 5900 open right now. So remote access, default ports, default credentials. So without too many details, I was in point of sale for a lot of years. I got into management. I was still doing and stuff, but not too much. And a location I'd never been to at a company we acquired got breached, and they sent me there to go solve it. right? So hired forensic investigation crew. They came out, did their analysis. We were the point of the breach. Had to replace terminals, servers, upgrade firewalls, lock everything down, get us to full PCI compliant. Anyway, the root of it was default credentials from the point of sale manufacturer image. So their image was even had PC, which I found amazing. 3 years before, they dumped the entire open source of that, right? So PC Anywhere is on there, VNC is on there, all default credentials for the point of sale company who was managing that server. So anybody who had ever worked for that retail environment or similar, or for that company, would have full access. And I remember my boss asked me, how would they know? And I just spun up a simple Nmap, scan this many addresses, and just tell me which ones have these ports open. That would tell me it's this point of sale vendor using this remote access. I ran for a few hours, came back, and there was like 2 or 3 hits. And I'm like, well, there's an Aloha. So, like, I know that's a business, and I know they have remote desktop enabled, and let's try the default credentials, see what happens. I didn't do that. I don't have permission to do that. But that's how it happens, right? It's not even that hard. It's super low hanging, but that $1 million because of that. TeamViewer, there's a lot of ones that are like home use that are being used in point of sale, which I find pretty interesting. There you go. And you get a lot of pushback from point of sale providers if you change the credentials. We can't support you because you changed the passwords. So kiosk modes. They have all these funky versions of kiosk mode. It's essentially some sort of lockdown on the system to keep users, employees from browsing and messing around. These ones right here, literally it's just escape. If you put a keyboard, they plan on having a keyboard hooked into that thing, right? You put a keyboard in, escape, full admin Windows, right? Some of the harder ones, the one in the middle you're at, if that one's fully run, it takes over, but all it does is replaces one of the regedit, just replaces your Explorer with their start in safe mode, change it back to Explorer, full Windows credentials, right? I find this amazing, on-screen keyboards. I'll show you that. I got a couple pictures of that from the last convention I was at. Unsecured USB ports. All of these, including a lot of kiosks, I mean, just look at the bottom of them. They're just full on everything. A lot of them do have a tamper screw, so it'll be like a clip with one screw, but they've been serviced and changed or whatever, and I would say 90% in the field have nothing on them right now. You walk up to a building, most don't have it. Next time you look, take a machine. And how hard is it to slap a keylogger in there on a stand or a terminal that's not being used while you're waiting at department store? Big vulnerability, right? And same physical keys. Most kiosks have like the exact same giant butterfly key. So ones that I have, I can go to other places and use that same key to open it. It's a problem. So this was last convention I was at. On-screen keyboard, if you don't disable it or have some kiosk mode or some hardening image that you're using, if you walk up to the side of a kiosk that's touchscreen and go right and just tap it like 3 times, a little keyboard will stick out. And you touch it, and that's what I did. This is what I did about 2 months ago. This was a touchscreen for buying tickets, movie tickets. And I pulled up control panel, and yep, it's admin. Like at that point, I closed it down. But yeah, it is there. So all these apps, they have with a ton of wireless stuff now. Like managers can approve stuff, but they're not even on the same wireless, but they're leveraging them to tablets now. I mean, all these tablets are pushing point of sale and integrated apps to everything. Almost every environment is starting to go this way. And so they like to hide their SSIDs, and that's good enough, right? Like, but WPS is still on, and like this is like the security for a lot of these is let's just hide. Yeah, if you can't see it, now Windows can even see it, but it's secure, right? It's amazing to me that you could just walk up to any, like a terminal's been removed, they downsized that location, 6 terminals to 5, and a lot of them will even just have like a network cable sticking out of like the hole on the counter. And they're all DHCP for the most part. Plug it in, you're gonna get the server is usually your gateway, right? So And they just have no internal restrictions. There is no reason why your terminal should ever have to talk to that terminal or that terminal to ever talk to that terminal. The only is if you're like sharing a printer, but most of those even spool back at the printer or back at the server and come back. So yeah, any point of sale environments, there's no your LAN should ever talk to your LAN except for, it's all the stuff we know. Source, destination, service, port, direction. Like it needs to get locked down to just that. Map drive, you said it, right? Open shares. Like, just look at these. They have like C drive. Things are just open, right? Everything's mapped. Here you go. Even the TCP ones, somebody had to go in and fix something, or there was a crisis, and somebody just mapped the whole C drive. Mobile apps, APIs, badly written APIs. Hopefully you coders aren't doing that, but terribly written APIs where it's essentially just, here's the pipe. Like, welcome in. Like, here's the API. The larger the retailer, the more that's integrated. Digital menu boards are pulling from point of sale or linked to point of sale to show ads, to change prices during the day, to change them at night. There's devices hanging off the front that give analytics for loyalty, what you buy, how much you buy, things like that. But all of those are generally for right on the point of sale LAN. But they open up ports to all sorts of stuff. External companies inside. So it helps you traverse from a LAN to a manager zone to whatever. A simple scan will show, oh, port 21 is open, back to the side. Online purchases, many third-party VPNs. I've set up a lot of VPNs to third parties, like hundreds of them. And it amazes me what I can ping on the other side. So what can they ping on the other side? Make sure we're locking that down. You're treating the VPN just like it's anything else. It's not this magic encrypted tunnel that just goes off and everything's secure. Home Depot was breached by a third party, right? And Target was breached by a third party. It's important. That gift and loyalty we kind of touched on. It amazes me how much we choke down one thing and then gift cards are just like wide open. Like clear text, gift cards flowing through.
Yeah, but you don't even require to encrypt them.
Not required. Nobody does, right? Gift cards don't even have check digits on them, which means take your gift card number, plug it into a system, go one number up, you have somebody else's, right? Go one number down, you have somebody else's. This was another one just to show that even Macs, just point of sale just have all sorts of weird stuff going on. So yeah, Windows updates just like all the time. No AV, no application whitelisting. Now some do. We have actually a plethora here. That one has some application whitelisting software on it. I think one of those other ones does. A couple have AV, different versions, but some have nothing. A lot I walk into are running XP embedded or POS 2009 embedded with absolutely nothing. Because it's on a LAN, it doesn't reach the internet. Everything is secure. But the server reaches the internet. Yeah, there you go, PCI. And then, so it's encrypted, but it's using poor encryption or just bad implementation of it. And NFC is this, it can be just as insecure as MSRs, right? The moment you transfer that point of sale, it's now back into clear text and that memory of that point of sale. So even if your phone, everything's happy, the moment you do there, it's still wide open, right? It's just like having clear tracks right here. All of them seem to run as admin for whatever reason. Apparently, figure out how to properly code permissions to run a simple application. But a lot of point of sale is just admin. Maybe it's just convenience. I don't know. Terminals, kiosks, and box office. Like everything's just admin. You can't change, you can't log out of the server account because it breaks everything. That's where all the applications live. They're not services, they're apps. So some of the recommendations, just reduce scope you need, encrypt it, policies, validate, audit. Now for hacking, it's all the opposite, right? Why are they collecting too much? Why is that tokenized? Why do they tokenize using an MD5 hash? Because PCI said it needs to just be a token and not what kind of token. Or homebrew hashes, right? Like people come up with their own homebrew and it's easy to reverse. It's like, oh, they do. You just look at 5 samples. Oh, okay. They just put the date in there. Like literally some of these tokens are that bad. Put the date, site ID number, there you go. That's your hash. Policies, validate. This one's is professional and attackers alike. Disk scrape your that code looking and tries to reduce how many false positives. Still get false positives, but try to reduce it. So anybody know what point-to-point or end-to-end encryption is? Yeah, you want to explain any of that?
Yeah, some of our companies are making it. So it's a device that will encrypt the card on itself and then send it over the network to the remote, the gateway, I guess.
Right.
Completely encrypted, takes everything out of scope.
So there's
the point of input device.
Yep. So yes, except for there's some variations of that. So you can have a point-to-point device that could be that terminal with a special reader on it. However, it's still on that code here. You go full end-to-end is this. This is an end-to-end scenario right here. It's literally encrypted right here, never touches the point of sale. The only thing that comes back to the point of sale is a token saying approved, not approved, last four of the card, right? So an end-to-end is by far better. It gets everything out of scope. There's no network, there's no back end. A lot of people also reduce it by doing a payment environment that's of the point of sale environment. But again, it all application and what has to touch what. So it's all separate, but when it's implemented, well, this is a true end-to-end encrypted end-to-end. End-to-end is not perfect either, right? There are tamper stickers on here, but if they're not being checked randomly, you can tamper these devices. And the way they are programmed to link to that private public key to its server is literally through an activation card, which we checked today. And they're on track 3, and it can be manipulated. So you could manipulate a activation to point it to where you want to point it to, and just walk in and swipe it in that terminal. Pretty fast because their books would not balance because their money's going somewhere else. But
That's why you do it at the beginning of the day.
there is some foolery that can happen with these as well. So, these also, a lot of them are on default credentials. On Maverick Ells the other day, I was able to get admin on a Verifone MX915 right here. It's the exact device. This is the only one I can't leave here. That's brand new. I gotta take that. But a lot of them just on default credentials. Hold 1, 5, and 9 down, and it'll ask you for a password just like this. And I can tell you the password later if you like, but it's on the internet if you look hard enough. Gas stations as well, they're Veriphones, same type of thing. 159, but it's a different code, but it's only one number up. Very convenient. So PCI in point of sale just becomes the checkbox that becomes everybody's maximum effort to get to, and really that's shouldn't be the case. You should take PCI as a good step because it gets people. If you don't see that forest of the tree scenario, you got to look at that big picture. What's that best practice and go after that. And PCI, if you have to check the box, that's great, but what's the reality here? You can have PCI environments that are just terrible environments. Is what I'm trying to say. Security is not a checkbox. You can't just make it different about it. It's always ongoing. You guys already know this stuff. Just show you something weird in point of sale I found. Point of sale is just crazy, right? You think you've seen it, and then you walk into something even crazier. People always just add stuff on add stuff. Everything about point of sale has always just been about availability. Stuff just has to work. And when I came to point of sale in 2001, it was all about availability. It was RG59 coax networking. It was on a ring, and that terminal went down. I got to reboot everything in reverse order, and then everything was about availability back then too. But this literally was hooked into a point of sale system that I found, and I just thought it was too amazing to just leave. This one, I don't know if that goes with it. Okay, there you go. This is all together. Feel free to figure out how that works. And the other one is, I even get in arguments with some QSAs about a serial device in scope. But it's a host and it connects and talks. And I'm like, no, a serial device is, you can sniff serial. Just don't, because they're too new, they don't understand you can sniff serial. We do it all the time for signs. For signs above, directional signs, we do that just for availability. Whenever they go down, we like to see what traffic is sent to that sign. You can do the same thing with any serial. Some of these old credit card readers here, you'll see some of them have a keyboard in them. That's serial, right? Even these are emulators to serial. Like everything is, serial is not this magic that because it's so old you can't do anything with it, right? So really, everything comes down to just what protection you put in place. But really, it's not this anymore. We used to play Missile Commander, right? That was what security was. It was all, let's build a dome above our towns and let's shoot things as they work anymore. Like you still need to protect your perimeter, but you need to plan on mitigation. Well, what's that next step? What's that? How do we protect once they're in? or once they're in, how do we reduce what they have access to? How do we get out of scope? How do we get the data out? How do we make sure when they're in there is no credit cards, right? This scenario, we did an end-to-end encryption, and we were told absolutely no PC out of scope, everything is good. However, I ran a check, and I found hundreds of credit cards. Where could this be? It was actually a third-party vendor VPN pushing them down. So even if you buy the right solutions, right implementation hardware, you got to make sure things are, you got to audit the security. All right, any questions on any of that stuff, guys? Anything you got?
Can you just run through it again?
Okay, let's go. Boom, boom, let's go. Boom. Here we go. Boom. Breach Plaza. Right? Grifters here. You're now in Breach Mall. Right here. Boom.
I think he was looking for a one-on-one session.
Default passwords, terminal logins. No, really, a lot of it's about credit card track. So, I mean, I've been able to duplicate credit cards, change security codes in credit cards, give them different abilities of what they can do. I forced my credit card where it can no longer be used at a terminal anymore because of that security code. If I was on welfare and I was stuck with goods and services in a particular manner, I would flip that service code number pretty simply so I could go buy an Xbox or something.
Or if you steal a credit card, you can turn the PIN off.
You can turn, yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, so I literally did that. This is my EMV card. I'm going to show the number. No. So this is the chip card. I read it, and then I duped it, but I flipped the service code to say it doesn't have a chip anymore. Because that's on the local side, because that makes sense, right? So you can turn off most of these controls. There are some, again, it's kind of stuff we were talking about with zip codes and with expiration dates that some banks and some back-end developer systems can check to make sure that it's valid. But a lot of this actually resides right on your card. You can also make your card in if you want to travel. You don't need to call them up, just do it. You're good to go. You want to lock down your kids, make them only use the ATM, you can do it. And you missed this, Grifter, is I've been literally walking around buying stuff with this. And nobody's told me no. I got a few weird looks, but nobody said no. If you just own it, like, here it is, and they look at you, and you just like stare at them like, why are you taking so long? They just process. That's awesome. So here's a full reader-writer if you guys want to see what's on information, feel free. We briefly did talk about, this is kind of out of the scope of point of sale, but hotels, especially the old legacies, are all numerical by one digit. So if you get your room card, read it, it'll be like numbers and then your room number somewhere in there, like 202. You could just write one and put 203, 204, 205. And you use it. Some of the better algorithms to change that. But definitely, they pull out a drawer and it looks like a 1980 machine. Game on. That's the entire hotel. You buy one room and you can even just check out. You have anywhere you want. But all cards, all MAD cards, this is all just clear text. This is what we rely on. 3 tracks of clear text. That's pretty much it. Oh, and yeah, we talked about physical security, where it just does not matter anymore. Their retail agreement, they're supposed to check, right? And Bo's number, all this stuff. Doesn't matter. It's all gone. Any questions on any of that stuff, guys? Any questions at all? I'm going to look at these terminals, play around. So these, I think we went over those. This is a different version of a reader. They're all just serial. Pretty simple. A lot of them have, if you were to take that apart, you'll see like little speakers in there, stuff to beep to let you know you swiped it right. A circuit board just to turn on the LEDs, green or red. These are the older Verifone devices. These are really easy to change where they go to. And these exist everywhere.
Yeah, they're all over.
All over. You can easily change this destination on where it is.
They're using it as a computer. There's so much today.
I can tell you, after talking to my brother quite a lot about this, we traveled and just got back from Steamboat. Where I go, I'm like, there's an HID reader, there's an HID reader. And after that, he's like, I can't not see this stuff anymore. Like, when you look, if you see this now on the side, I mean, you'll see these are just the side of everything. Hotels everywhere. That's just keyboard emulator, right? That's super easy. The malware that ended up doing that compromise was
Which compromise?
the one I can't share too much details about. All right. The one, the malware ended up dumping. It was like teach hour essentially. Like they got it to the server, and in the don't infect too many terminals. It said don't get greedy and infect too many terminals. Pick like a third, so you can like it was like written in. Just
commented out.
So, luckily for that breach, they did some very low transactions. They did a couple high ones, but if they'd done all the high ones, it would have been triple the expense. So they did a bunch of the low ones, but all it did literally was install this exe on there. Every swipe, process it, but take a copy and put it into a text file called test.txt that was sitting on the C drive. So like literally C drive is a notepad text or test.txt. A bunch of credit cards in there. And once a night, the server is going to batch those to the server and offload an FTP to Romania. So egress traffic would have been good. Some land-to-land lockdowns would be good. Remote access default things, right? But literally, some of these aren't sophisticated. We always hear these like Poseidon and Black OPS and there's some things out there, but really, I think it's like I don't think I've seen any of that don't just attack Windows. So like, because all point of sale is Windows. There are some Linux and there's things like that coming, but most enterprise is all just camping on Windows, right? So most is written for Windows, and a lot of these aren't hardened. There's a reason that they can get into Target's network party and just troll around. And in that scenario, they got PIN, right? They got full PIN in triple DES, which is.
So did you say it's actually safer to like you do a transaction where somebody swipes it through Square than it is to use that system sitting on the table right there?
This system is the most secure.
No,
Right?
not that one. This
Okay.
one. It's older.
Well, if it's on dial, it's pretty secure, surprisingly. So, but most aren't because they don't want to wait that transaction time. Your most secure is almost where these new cards are going. They're going where you can add a lot of cards onto a single card. The reason is because they do a one-time token credit card to the point of sale, and then it's
Talking about
burned for
like
another one.
coin or like,
Yeah, exactly, coin. The downside with those is they're too thick for some readers, so people can't get them in some.
Yeah.
And the battery sucks, where you'll have to like shake it to get it going. I watched a guy in line like trying to get his card live. It's not worth it, right? I mean, we want availability. And granted, the credit card really is just a token too, right? It's not your social, it's not your birthday. It does have your name, but it's just a token. It is inconvenient, but it's a token. You can burn it and get a new token, right?
Yeah.
So I think the most
because I bought 2 coins, like fuck, it's gonna be a year ago at this point, just to play with, you know.
Right.
And it's like it's finally shit.
So the coin thing's kind of cool. It's like a $99 a year subscription. You get a free one. But, I mean, that's literally what I just did. I just loaded my card on here.
Well, then coin doesn't have like chip and pin. But what's the one? What's
EMV.
other one?
Yeah.
There's another one that does have the ability to do that, but it's not to do like firmware here.
Right. And pin and chip will never be the savior people want it to be as long as we have a failover.
Sure.
And that failover is that mag strength. Until this is removed,
Well, in Singapore, if it didn't have chip and pin, we couldn't use it.
actually
There was a
overseas,
couple of-
there's some really funky errors that happen overseas, right? You will take a foreign card. It's online if you search around for it. A guy will swipe a card on the device, and it will say, that is a PIN card, or a chip and PIN card. You need to dip it. So you'll dip it, but because it's foreign and the service code is slightly different, it'll say, you need to swipe. Weird scenario where you can't use your card at all because they're fighting each other in different scenarios.
We couldn't use it in the taxi, couldn't use it at the hotel front desk, stuff like that, unless it was
That's actual chip.
I was like,
Yeah, and then we have so much card not present too. Like online sales, like what is the chip going to help you at all?
doesn't do anything
Does
for it.
nothing.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing. And where does most of the fraud happen?
Online.
Yeah, why do you want to show up somewhere? I mean, their goal is to buy goods, brand new iPhones, iPads, and then they flip them, right? That's it. They buy a good, turn around, sell it. Craigslist, KSL, these really good deals you've got, $20, $30 off retail, you probably bought something that was on a credit card, right? You just got it.
No, I didn't.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You were selling. Okay.
I sell, of course. Yes.
But I mean, that's
a good deal, man.
the ATM kiosk, right? The ATM dump that did $3 million in like one weekend. You guys read about that? That was all done using a default key for the kiosks. And what they did was they just put in a boot CD and the 32-bit driver in there that essentially, when they did any on a certain button presses, would just shoot out money. So a little extra reconnaissance work. They pretty much waited the whole weekend. You can't leak this out. It's all hushed like a badge. Right? Nobody can talk about this. Their keys. Everybody has their account numbers, and weekend go. Right. So they all go. Use the key. Kiosk opens. Put in a CD. Just looks like it's in service mode. You flip it up. Somebody comes up. You're like, nah, busy working on it. Right. Load it off a disk. Disk turns around. Dumps it in. The 32-bit. Now most kiosks are still actually running 32-bit XP still. 2009 embedded. They get to run XP embedded for whatever reason, and they just go up to the terminal. Once they're done, they can walk up anytime or leave. A whole other person can come up and push certain key presses, and it's just like lottery. Right? It's just ding, 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 ding. Like they should have that alarm going off in the hour. It'd be pretty cool, but. Essentially, it's just money. It just drained it. And they made like $3 million in a weekend from the UK all over Europe to the US. Like, just gangbusters. Just went nuts. So, default keys. I mean, it's the same thing, but we just don't think about like a physical key. Well, once they get in there, what's in there? It's admin Windows. Right? And a lot of the kiosks are really cool because they'll give you a keyboard and a mouse in there. They're just left in there for convenience. You don't even need to have any of these portable keyboards, items like this. You can just, they just give it for you. Nice little trackball mounted to the side. Good to go, right? So yeah, kiosks are a big haven for criminals to try because they're unmanned, right? And same with, I don't know if you know, a lot of credit cards are checked on donation websites. Wikipedia, stuff like that, get hit all the time with, so if I have a stolen credit card, I'm going to go to Wikipedia and donate them $1. If it clears, then I know I have a valid card. And because they don't ask questions, they don't ask your address, your name, your nothing. All they do is just they just want your number.
That's what like I think I've ideas about before. It wasn't last year, the year prior. Without RSA, I didn't use my personal card. It's just a company card everywhere. And then when I was leaving the parking garage right next to Moscone Center, like they didn't take American Express, and I was like, son of a bitch. The guy wasn't at the window, and I had to use the machine, and it got skimmed. Like I got home, and there was a $1 charge, and then there was a $200 charge, and it was like so the initial charge to see that it was valid, and then the 200 whatever. But American First like caught it and blocked it. But it was like, they did that $1 charge to make sure that. Yep. And they tried to Western Union. Like $250 somewhere.
There's entire scripts out there on GitHub about how to batch cards against donation websites for $1. So they'll take a dump and just run the entire dump. And then that's the card I'm actually going to put into my text field, which I can show you that. Actually, I got it right here.
I'll tell you a story when the camera's off.
So this is really what it comes down to. Like this is it. So you just take that card and you turn it to read mode, and it's going to show you what's in here. And feel free, these ones on the desk, if you want to take one, go for it. The USB ones will be much more friendly to you than the PS2 ones. But this will read anything on there. Whatever's on your data, you can pull up right in a notepad. Plug this in your computer, wait a second, swipe your notepad, it's going to give you your full PAN information. There's a few cards that I've manipulated that we can play with if we want to turn them on to read. So we can turn this to read here. So this is a manipulated track 3 activation card. This is not the actual call out. I flipped digits and added more. Oh, it's 106, Danny. 106.
Yeah. 106.
I think it actually added a question.
Yeah, it did because it was a little.
So you could make a card, right? You can flip digits, whatever the legitimate was, and point to where you want to point it to. And a lot of these are full on lock. Like you could have full give me admin access. Don't give me, reduce it. Track 1 and 2, that's where your credit card data lies, right here. And some of these, I mean, this is saying swipe another card, swipe another. You can do hundreds of cards, right? Here's 250 cards for like $15. You just crank these out. It's not hard for them to take that data, check against that batch, what cleared, and dupe those cards. And they're probably doing a better job. $2,000 equipment to make it look legit. In my scenario, I just tried it. Nobody cares. Just kind of a white card. And Dan had a good idea. Just essentially say, it's security. Like, this is a security card.
You should just take a magic
It's
marker
under
and write
security.
like Bank of America.
So-
You're not supposed to know.
So my next test was that I actually wanted to write this card is stolen and just see if anybody said that. Because I've done that on the signature pad at Walmart, like stolen.
I know, but
Nobody cares. Nobody cares,
those are a little-
right?
And so on some of them, like they can see what you're signing now, because I did have somebody one time, like I just drew like a big pile of shit, and like a butt, and the girl was like, nice. Like she wasn't looking at my script, she was looking at hers on the other side, but she was like, nice. And I was like, whatever, I'm not gonna contest it.
But yeah, I mean it's pretty simple to put your own card in here, flip digits, service code, full numbers, anybody number, and literally all you need is that. I mean, this actually is a little more secure, right? Like you can't take a picture of this now. I don't know if that's obscurity or not, but it is doable. Well, I don't really. Let's go to the questions. So if not,
Let's mess around with them.
yeah, let's mess around.
All right, cool.
Thanks, Danny.